All right, welcome everybody. I am Paddo. With me today is Elithrion, and we are going to be bringing you another Bloodborn episode. We're going to take some time to, play some games with him and basically get to know a lot more about him. So, to kick it right off the bat, Elithrion, how did you find Duelist?
It's actually kind of a weird story. I was watching a stream of someone playing Heroes of the Storm. I went on the Heroes of the Storm Reddit page. I saw Atlanta mentioned. I looked at Atlanta's stream, and there I saw a reference to Duelist. I looked at the Kickstarter, and I thought it looked kind of interesting, and I signed up for Alpha, and then like months later, there I was.
Yeah. So, whenabouts did you actually start? Like, how long have you been playing Duelist so far?
I remember I got the invite basically at the end of April, and I literally spent a day or two just reading guides and like introduction stuff. And then I actually started playing on May 1st. So it's been 2.5 months now.
Yeah, it's actually a decent chunk of time. So, um, what's your background? Did you play a lot of CCG games or like tactical turn-based games before, or is this kind of like a new game type for you?
I used to play Magic in high school, not on like a high level by any means, but just with my friends. Um, I read articles, so I probably wasn't a complete amateur, but not that amazing at it. After that, I played Hearthstone since beta days, mostly just doing quests and arenas. And I played a few months of Soulforge, just playing its limited mode.
Right on. So like a little bit. You didn't come in like a professional, obviously, but you came in with at least some knowledge of card games. So moving on, like what I see that you obviously have been playing lots of Lionar. Is that the only faction you play, or do you actually dabble with some of the other factions?
It's actually kind of a funny story. Don't I don't dislike Lionheart, but it's not really my favorite by any means. I like every faction except for Magmar, really. Magmar can go burn, but every other faction, great. The reason I actually ended up going with Lionheart so much is mostly because it was so cheap to get into. So when the first tournament came around, I thought, hey, maybe I'll play this. And uh, I thought, well, I'm having decent success with Lionar on the ladder, so that's probably a good choice. And I knew that I didn't have to craft very many cards. Actually, I crafted like one card or two cards maybe for the first tournament, and I wasn't disenchanting or crafting anything then.
Yeah, so it was a combination of like, hey, like this faction is pretty good, but also you could build it pretty efficiently. What like when you look at Linar, like what about it, basically screams like Elithrion? Like what like besides like just the fact that like you were doing pretty good with it, like is there anything within the faction that like is kind of your style, you would say?
What I like about it is that there are many options to actually counter most of your opponent's decisions. It can actually be quite oppressive because you can just put in not anything you want, but dispels, provokes, uh, repulsor beasts if you want, and there's a lot of flexibility in the faction. And I kind of like that. I like always having an answer to my opponent's plays and being able to just counter anything they do. And I think Kleinar does a pretty good job of that.
Yeah, so do you think they're like a pretty a safe faction compared to most, where like some factions that you might be able to get cheese, but Linar maybe is one of the factions where it's like since you do have those answers, you're more relying on your skill at that point to respond with the correct ones than to potentially like hopefully I draw the right combination of cards.
Yeah, it's definitely possibly the most stable faction, or at least one of the most. It's You can still get cheesed by like amazing Songhai draw, except maybe not with this particular deck that I'm playing right now. But usually you're immune to all sorts of cheese. You can, um, if the opponent's deck is worth, you're just not going to lose ever if it's a decent matchup.
So you've actually, you mentioned that when you started out, you actually spent a lot of time reading guides when you first started. What would be your advice to new players to that are getting into the game, that want to get good at, want to learn, what would be kind of like your like first steps that you would recommend to them if they want to pick up Duelist?
Mm, honestly, I don't know. It's hard to say. There are many good options for getting there. You could copy other players. You could try to figure things out yourself. Usually, I do like to go the myself route, but I've seen lots of people have a lot of success with just imitating others' play styles as well. So as long as you're not obsessing over your draws or over luck, as long as you're just trying to think everything through and learn from everything and just do everything better, you'll eventually get there.
Yeah.
Oh,
So like,
also,
oh
I
yeah, shoot.
recently wrote a guide on how to improve, so you could go read that.
Yeah,
Maybe it'll help.
I actually read through it a bit. I think you actually have some very good advice for new players and more of like the mental framework it takes to get good at like any game, not just necessarily Duelist. So I actually enjoyed the read myself. So definitely go check that out. It's on the Duelist forums currently. Just search Elithrion's name and you'll find it pretty easily. So with that, like, is there any like next deck like beyond like Lionar? You've been playing a bit. Beta's gonna come up, and there's gonna be like a hard wipe. Are you gonna stick with Lionar? Are you gonna maybe see how your packs turn out? Is there like a new frontier or faction that you maybe want to take on with your new lease on life as you grow your Duelist collection?
Well, I can tell you that Lionar is definitely not going to be the focus. Uh, I'm not sure if I'm going to focus on a particular other faction. I think I'll look where the packs take me, but I have more or less had enough of Lionar for now. I think I'm going to look into Abyssian or Songhai, maybe Vitruvian if I feel like the packs are going that way. Um, yeah, I'll just look around, not Magmar.
So if you've played this game for 2.5 months now. If I gave you the reins to make any change you wanted in the game, if I said, Elithrion, like here's you have now have access to the dev side of things. You can make any change you want. They'll do whatever you say. What would be your change that you would like to see? It could be anything minor. It could be a big change. What would you want to see?
Well, I've been thinking about this since actually seeing a previous Bloodborne episode. And first of all, the real change would be like a list of 100 changes, most of them tiny buffs to cards that are underused. But if I were going to go with one change, it would probably be that everything would strike back against Frenzy. And then I would give some sort of buffs to Frenzy units. But I just find the way that Frenzy works right now kind of, first of all, unintuitive, and second of all, really obnoxious. And on top of that, I feel like every Frenzy unit is broken, except for Serpentine. Like if you look at Portal Guardian, that's pretty broken. Like if Portal Guardian costs or it had like 6 life, people would still probably play it. So I would call that broken. If you look at uh, all the Magmar stuff, that's pretty broken. That's the only reason Magmar is any good. Well, not quite, but close. And yeah, it just feels like the current state of the mechanic is kind of out of hand.
Yeah, I would tend to agree. As like when I first came into the game, Macintor was actually a cheaper costing card, and I think it was like cost like 4 or something silly or ridiculous, or at least 5. I remember coming into the game and being like, "Wow, this card's not only really good but pretty ridiculous." But then, I mean, once you look at what Macintor Warbeast really is, it's like, and break it down, like, yeah, sure it has Rush, but you look at Dire Tide Frenzy, and it's like, okay, I put this on a Saber Spine Tiger, and it's kind of the same thing now, and like, yeah, and and you start looking at the mechanic. I tend to agree with you that Frenzy is one of those mechanics. So I would actually, that would be an interesting change. I'd like to see how that worked out, because it definitely changed the dynamic of using Frenzy and not. I mean, because you're still gonna get value when it dies. But yeah, this way it would make it a little bit more risky just to choose to go on there and just like, oh, I'm gonna wipe everything, and since you had something that had 0 attack, I took no damage.
Yeah, like you would still get something out of it because you could just kill a lot of things with one creature, but at least it would be dead, which would be a welcome change in my opinion. Yeah, sorry, people are being kind of noisy in the background.
No, it's all good. This is actually a pretty epically long game, but I guess you can expect that from Lionar versus Lionar matches.
Yep.
The effective health is pretty high on these matches.
I also haven't drawn any Holy Immolations, which would be the finisher of choice. And my things keep bringing back Sun Drops, which is not what I want that much at this point. But yeah, I expect I'll win in the next few turns.
Soon, the double Rejuvenator.
Yep.
So Emerald Rejuvenator actually is one of those big new neutrals that kind of they kind of filled a void, because we had Healing Mystic popped in, and it was like a little too health heal, which for a lot of factors that don't have neutral healing, like, it was still welcome. Then it got bumped to a 2/3, so it's actually fitting like the golden 2/3 for 2 rule. And then you also have stuff like Emerald Rejuvenator now, which came in, which is a 4/4 that heals for 4. Do you think like this card is like a really big player now for factions that didn't have heal before, and kind of the thing that pushes, it looks like in this deck, Lionar into like a super heal effective health state?
Yeah, for sure. Honestly, I think Emerald Rejuvenator is too strong right now. But, so that's another one of the things I would change. Just like a little bit weaker for 3, maybe 3 healing, one of those. And also, I just realized I left the Tombstone block out to me, but okay. Yeah, it definitely helps Banner, especially. I think all the other part factions had something at least, and Songhai was the reason they needed something. Oh boy, maybe I'll lose. So I think it's definitely a welcome change on the whole, but maybe too good. And that we got replaced. And
This game is epic.
this is happening. And these. Am I dead? Oh, I guess I killed some more. So this is actually sort of the type of deck I might lose to, because it has lots of big creatures. Finally, Holy Immolation. So that makes it much harder to deal with, but as you can see, I'm still looking favored, unless he has like another 2, like Sun Drop into Divine Bond, something like that.
Yeah, because this Tombstone is actually from a Dilotus. Like, is that a card that you've experimented with in Lionar? How do you feel about this card? Because you do get the 0/10 Tombstone afterwards, but is that good? Like, have you played around with that at all?
Honestly, no. I have not. I think I have lethal, right? Yeah. Looks interesting, but I feel like it's such a huge commitment to Divine Bond. And now there's also that does, yeah, okay. And now there's also Zanui, which steals it, and it's just like terrible. So, not entirely sold on that card. Maybe I should experiment with it, but doesn't look very appealing, to be honest.
Yeah. So as we kind of wrap up this portion of it, do you have any shout outs or anything to anybody that maybe has helped you along the way, or any friends out there that might be watching this?
I discovered at one point that Winged, who's an old friend of mine, plays this game. Then she didn't invite me. And then when I started being active in the game, she left. So I wish she would come back. But other than that, Symphony for often playing with me, and all the people in the competitive scene like Element Bistio, Crespo, or like semi-competitive scene, Atlanta, they're always fun to play against, and it's a lot more interesting to play against them than random games on the ladder.
Yeah, for sure, man. Well, definitely thank you for taking time to sit down with us